All right, in 2.6c, we're going to be solving polynomial and rational inequalities. These are a little more tedious, a lot more detailed, so hang in there and don't get frustrated. Number one, solve and sketch the solution on number line. Sounds familiar because it's kind of what we've been doing, all right? But now the equations are going to be a little more complex. So the first thing I would recommend you do if you have a trinomial like this is to factor it. And if you factor this, you get x plus 2 times x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 9. Well, I can rewrite this as x plus 2 squared greater than or equal to 9. And that's all fine and good. Now we're back to what we had previously done about extracting square roots. So we take the square root of both sides, okay? Now remember, when you take a square root, you're really taking the absolute value. Okay? Now we apply the rules that we did with absolute value before, remember? So we're going to put the plus and minus in down here. So we're going to rewrite this. X plus 2 is less than or equal to the negative value of 3. And then x plus 2 is greater than or equal to the positive value of 3. And then we solve it like we did before. Okay? X is less than or equal to negative 5. X is greater than or equal to 1. And now we have a number line with our two values. It's less than or equal to negative 5, so I mark it and I shade. It's greater than or equal to 1, mark it and shade. Close circle because it's an or equals to. And there's my solution. Now, the next few are a little more complicated, and that's what these steps are for. So I want you to pause the video, write these steps down, and then we're going to reference these as we work through the next few examples. All right, so let's try this first one. It's a rational equation, and we got to get common denominators. First step. So to get a common denominator, I need to multiply this guy by x over x. So this becomes 2 minus 2x squared over x is less than 0. All right? So now we have put it in general form, meaning we've gotten the common denominators and we have a 0 on one side of the inequality. So we're good. We've done the general form thing. Now we find what we call key numbers. So you're going to set the numerator equal to 0 and the denominator equal to 0. Now, when the denominator is 0, that means we're going to have an undefined, right? We'll come back to that in a minute. Now, if the numerator is 0, let's solve this for x squared. So if I subtract 2, divide by negative 2, I get x squared equals positive 1. And then square root both sides, so x would equal positive and negative 1. So my key values are where x is 1, x is negative 1, and x is 0. Now, if I put 1 or negative 1 in there, that will give me a 0 for the equation. If I put a 0 in the denominator, I get undefined. No good. Now, go back to the inequality. It is asking me, where is this equation less than 0? Well, what does less than 0 mean? That also means, where is it negative? Okay? So that's important because we're going to now use our number line and put our values on there. We have negative 1, we have 0, and we have 1. And what we've done by doing this is separated our number line into 4 sections. And we've got to test each section, interval in that section, to see where is this inequality, or where is this equation over here, this original equation right here, where is it negative? Where is it going to come out negative? Now, don't get too hung up in this. I'm going to show you how to use your calculator to do a lot of the thinking for you. So what I would encourage you to do first is think about what are the values between our key numbers we need to test. Well, all right, let's test something way over here to the left of negative 1, like negative 2. And let's test something between 0 and negative 1, like negative 0.5. And let's test something between 0 and 1, which would be positive 0.5. And then something to the far right, to the right of positive 1, which would be a positive 2. Now, the easiest way to test this, y'all, is to take your calculator and do this. in your calculator, go to your y equals screen, and I want you to type in the equation, all right? So everything in the numerator I'm going to put in parentheses. So 2 minus 2x squared divided by x, all right? So there's my equation. It's going to plug in any value I want for x, all right? So I'm going to show you how to get there. The next thing you're going to want to do, and we'll talk about this in class also, is go to second and window right here. It'll take you to this table setup. And all you have to do is see where it says independent, scroll it over and tell it to ask. So bold the yes. Then you're going to go over to table, so second and graph, that takes you to the table. So notice there's nothing in there. So what it's doing is asking, what do you want to put in for x? Well, we figured out our 4 values we want to test. So let's test the first one. Let's test where x is -2. Hit enter, and it spits out the y value. So that, look at that, it came out positive. That's all I need to know. It's a +1. So I'm going to put a plus. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for -0.5. Look at that, it came out negative. So I'm going to write that down. Now I'm going to put in +0.5. It came out positive. And then what about a +2? And it came out negative again. All right? So that's what I need to know. Remember, what am I looking for? The equation says I want to know where is this less than 0, or where are the results going to come out negative. So these intervals right here give me the answers I want. Now, notice it's not an equals to 0. So since it's not an equals to 0, I have to put an open circle on the 1 and the -1. And because I don't want it undefined, I put an open circle on 0. Now we're going to shade the regions that give us the appropriate answer, which is the negative answers. So we've said we're -0.5. So where's that? Well, that's right in here, between 0 and -1. And where x is 2, where's that? That's to the far right. Okay? Then I rewrite this in interval notation. So what is this going to look like? It's going to be -1 to 0, and then 1 to +infinity. All right? So that's a lot of talking you through it. We're going to keep working the examples, and hopefully it will get easier. Now let's go to number 3. This is going to work like the first one we did. So notice it's already squared. So we just take square roots. So I pick the absolute value of x plus 2 is less than square root of 25. So we're going to rewrite this. X plus 2 is, this is a less than problem. So I'm going to go less than -5 over here, and put the less than here as a +5. So remember, you keep your inequalities pointing to the left, negative on the left, positive on the right. Then we solve it. So I have -7 and 3. So x is between -7 and 3. All right, so this feels really easy after what we just did. -7 and 3. Open circles because they're not equal to, and x is between them, and that's what I needed. So then I write my interval notation. I'll say -7 to 3, and that's my answer. All right, let's try some more. Number 4 looks a lot like what we just did, that long problem, but that's okay. So we need to start by getting a common denominator, x over x. So this is going to give me 1 minus 5x over x is greater than 0. So now we have it in general form. We have 0 on one side of the inequality. Now we set up our key numbers. So 1 minus 5x equals 0. So -5x equals -1. So x is equal to +1/5. And the denominator where x is 0, okay, this is going to give me an undefined answer. So I know when I do my number line, it can't be a 0. It's undefined. It's a no-no. Now, when x is 1/5, that's going to make this equal to 0, and I want greater than 0, right? So I can't use 1/5 either. So now I've got to look at my different regions I've created on my number line. So I need to pick some values for x. So I'm going to pick a -1. I'm going to pick something in between 0 and 1/5. Pick like a smaller fraction, like 1/7. And the calculator think it for you. And then something over here to the right, pick a big old whole number, it don't matter. All right, so then we're going to go back to our calculator. Remember to change the equation your y equals, it's real important, and change it to the equation that you have in general form. We're going to go 1 minus 5x divided by x. Right? So my equation's in there. Now I can go to my table, and it's going to ask me for values. So let's do this. We put in a -1, and I get a negative answer. That's what I need to know. This one's negative. Now, for 1/7, don't be freaked out. Just type in 1 divided by 7. Ah, it's positive. Comes out positive. So that's good to know. This comes out positive. And if I put a 2 in there, what's going to happen? I get a negative. So my regions, they're negative over here, it's positive here, and it's negative over here. Okay. Now what is my equalities asking me for? It's asking for greater than 0. That is, if it's greater than 0, that means positive. So I want the region where it's positive, so that's in between these two guys. All right? So I write my interval notation, 0 to 1/5. All right? All right, last example. So this is crazy because it's not equal to 0 over here. We got to move it over. So let's do that. 2x minus 7 over x minus 5 minus 3 is less than or equal to 0. Now we have to get a common denominator of x minus 5. This is going to be complicated, but we can do this. So it's going to be 2x minus 7 minus 3x plus 5, or 15. All of that over x minus 5. So let's clean this up. This will become negative x plus 8 over x minus 5. That's less than or equals 0. Now, this is our go-to formula. When we put it in the calculator, this is the one we want. Okay, don't go back to the original. Go back to the one that's simplified and has 0 on one side. All right? Now, again, we find our key values. So we say negative x plus 8 equals 0. Negative 8 equals negative equals negative 8. So that means x is 8. Okay. And then x minus 5 equals 0. So where x is 5, that's going to be undefined. Okay. Now, this number line, we have a 5 and we have an 8. Now, where you put in an 8, it will make the whole thing equal to 0. But notice our inequality is an or equals to 0. So that's legal. We can put a closed circle on that 8. We have to put an open circle on the 5, however, because that makes it undefined, and that's a no-no. Now, this is a little simpler to find our 3 regions. Okay, find a number over here to the left of 5. You can pick something like 1. Between 5 and 8 would be a 7. You could pick 6. It doesn't matter. And then something to the right of 8, pick a 10. Doesn't matter. We're going to go back to our calculator and put in this equation right here. Okay, this is what we're putting in. So let's do that. Put that in your y equals first. Put the numerator in parentheses. And put the denominator in parentheses because it's a binomial. Then we go to our table, and let's put in some values and see what happens. All right, so let's what happens if I put in a 1. Notice my result comes out negative. What happens if I put in a 7? The result comes out positive. And let's see what happens if I put in a 10. It is negative. All right, so what happened here? This region over here is negative, between them is positive, and this part's negative. Now go back to the inequality. What does it say? It wants less than or equals to. That means negative or 0. So we already figured out a 0 and 8. And we want negative. So we're going to highlight on our number line, where did it become negative? That's what our values gave us there. So then I write my interval notation, negative infinity to 5, and then it jumps with a bracket on 8, because it's included, to positive infinity. All right, so these are a little trickier. We'll work more with these in class. Hopefully this video has been helpful. But please ask questions as you need to.